Evil has survived. A dark figure wanders in the east. He must be stopped at all costs.
Killing the Greater Evil Diablo is a necessity in each installment of the franchise for the forces of light to prevail. At least, I thought it was, until Diablo 2 lead artist Phil Shenk blew my mind when he revealed untold information that suggests killing Diablo was probably a poor choice in Diablo 2, a revelation we will further explore in the video. But also, that then begs the question, what if we had followed Phil's advice and hadn't killed the Lord of Terror? What would it mean for the story as a whole? Well, to answer the question, we need to go back to the beginning.
You're too late.
This may be our darkest hour, but it will be your greatest moment.
Originally, I stumbled upon this fact when I was tweeted in regards to Diablo 2 cinematics. Shameless plug, my socials are on screen if you want to further the discussion, in which Duke asked on Twitter, "Isn't it strange that Diablo in Diablo 2 Act 4 looks back at Baal just before he goes through the gate to hell? It seems to me that Baal has sacrificed Diablo in some way. All that was missing was for Baal and Mephisto to start giggling dirty behind closed hands after Diablo had left." Now, what I personally hadn't realized was how close the Duke was to unraveling a larger revelation. As such, I responded with my own theory and said, "Oh, I don't know. I thought it was just a choice cinematic shot of his face which we hadn't got before." As a quick aside, I'm going to prove myself wrong first. I don't think the developers really were showing off Diablo's face at all, nor would you want to. In fact, I'd go as far to say that I think there was a reason that Diablo's face was draped in shadow down in Mephisto's urine of hate. But why hide the Lord of Terror's beautiful mug? I mean, the in-game model of Diablo is probably the best incarnation of the Lord of Terror thus far. However, the cinematic shot that we see briefly doesn't quite match up. Notice how Diablo's head is longer and narrow, almost like a tube with a more bull-like quality to the horns, versus the in-game model, which is more standard demon Diablo. No? Too dark? Well, why don't we take a look at the cinematic model in the light? That's right. If you side by side these models, this is even the exact same flexing pose as in-game, and the icing on the cake is that if one was to smartly question this picture's authenticity, the poster has Blizzard's seal of approval down at the bottom. For just a low $99.99, this abomination could be yours. Seriously, this poster is actually so bad it's almost good. It looks like someone went on vacation since Diablo 1 and thought the game was still somehow based in claymation. The reason, I can only guess, probably due to Blizzard North developing the game and Blizz South creating the cinematics. There must have been a miscommunication and they decided to drape Diablo in shadow to save time. Now that we've solved the minor mystery of the dopey Diablo, what I failed to mention was when I was tweeted originally, I linked Diablo 2's lead artist Phil Shenk, as he'd been exploring Diablo 2's art and story on Twitter recently and is an all-round good guy who loves to answer Diablo questions for fans some 20 odd years later. Thank you, Phil. I highly suggest you give him a follow. This is a plug that's worth plugging. What? To the tweet in question from Duke about Diablo's potential betrayal, Phil not only kindly responded, but gave us never-seen-before insight into what the Primes were thinking in that crucial moment in which he said, "There was meant to be some unspoken words, but not that Baal tricking Diablo." They had a big plan, and this was a pivotal moment. Would the hero take the bait and follow Diablo into hell, thereby freeing Baal to possess the World Stone? It was then my mind blown. Act 4 was a total sham. I only realized by playing vanilla Diablo 2 alone would killing the Lord of Terror make logical sense, but seeing the plot as a whole with the Lord of Destruction expansion, tactically following Diablo to hell should probably be avoided, perhaps entirely. If you want to try and save the World Stone, Herogoth, Interial, Marius, etc., not yet convinced? Well, consider the following. For players who ended Diablo in the original game, the story and subsequent hunting of the warrior turned Dark Wanderer is all the more tragic, but also a personal vendetta. This is further cemented as we are told time and again from the beginning of Diablo 2 that we must hunt down the Lord of Terror before he frees his brothers. A task we fail during Act 3 when the brothers reunite under the city of Kurast, as Luis Barriga sums up the entire story of Diablo 2.
The entirety of Diablo 2 was predicated upon being $1 a day late and $1 short. And we basically want to encapsulate that feeling, put it in a bottle, and just create a whole world with that sense.
So, understandably, by the end of Act 3, after contending with a cranky Mephisto, we're pretty flustered by our failure, always being one step behind the Lord of Terror. And this is a crucial element for why we were deceived as the player and hero of the game. When the three then meet under Kurast, they begin their ultimate gambit, started centuries before when they orchestrated their own dark exile. Their endgame was to use the Soul Stones to corrupt the World Stone, the very reality-shaping stone that created Sanctuary, and to use its power to turn Sanctuary into another plane of hell, with Baal's broken Soul Stone, now known as the Shard of Destruction, as the key to its corruption. So, before we follow Baal's journey, let's look at where all the players are positioned on the chessboard. There is but one goal for the brothers: possess the World Stone by corrupting it with a Shard of Destruction. As told in the Great Conflict, heaven and hell have held sway over the stone innumerable times, but this time is different. To irreversibly corrupt it would be the end game. An end game even worth sacrificing the prime evils, at least for a time, as they will always return from the abyss. As such, Mephisto stands guard at the portal to hell, which Diablo enters to rally the forces of hell, and Baal leaves to find his Shard of Destruction in the possession of one hapless Marius. All it takes is an encounter with Mephisto, and we are so hot for Diablo, we don't even consider the errant Baal as we blindly race after Diablo through the portal to hell. Mephisto, said to be the most cunning of the three, is also said to have devised this very plan centuries before, and accounting for the hero's vendetta, he does something that no one would expect, as the three rarely work together, and stands selflessly to feign the importance of Diablo over Baal, which tactically is a genius move. Hell, when you consider this, Baal's dialogue in Lord of Destruction's trailer talks about his brother's sacrifices and goals of corrupting the World Stone, and is all the more poignant. Hence why I'm going to let it play, but also because I love Baal in this, and the sacrifice will not be in vain.
I have walked the earth, always searching for that which will make me whole. High in the mountains of Kailaran, deep within Mount Ariet, lies that thing. I shall have it. My brothers will not have died in vain. And I shall rule unchallenged.
Due to the greater perceived threat of Diablo, we never really question what Baal is doing, as he is yet to be whole, and smashing Mephisto's stone in tandem with Diablo's seems to make sense in the vanilla game. I even remember being so excited to stop Diablo as he had totally corrupted the Wanderer, and never even thought much about Marius as well. Apparently, neither did Tyrael, as he probably should have tracked down Marius to make sure he was on course with his mission, rather than, I don't know, just trust a 411 opioid abuser and act like he really was a prime candidate to enter a portal to hell and smash the Soul Stone. Seriously, this is the first in Tyrael's many questionable actions throughout the franchise. Justice truly is blind.
You have just ensured the doom of this world. You cannot even begin to imagine what you've set in motion this day. Go to the Temple of Light in the eastern city of Karast. There you will find the gate to hell opened before you. You must find the courage to step through that gate, Marius. Take the stone you hold to the Hellforge, where it will be destroyed. Now run. Take the stone and run!
But what if we didn't chase Diablo to hell? I posit that if we followed Phil's advice and didn't take the bait, letting Diablo go rally his forces in hell, the heroes of Diablo 2 and Sanctuary citizens would have possibly been much better off. Why? Enter the Great Exile. To start this whole plan off, the Great Evils masterminded their own exile with the aid of the rogue angel Iswar. However, they didn't let the lesser evils in on the plan to maintain their legitimacy in the eyes of hell and heaven alike. Later, Andariel and Juriel would join their cause, but the remaining evils, Asmodan and Belial, were locked in a cold war for the ruling seat of hell during this period. So, imagine a solo Diablo rocks up to hell and is gathering forces in his Chaos Sanctuary. When Asmodan or Belial learned of their treachery, one could safely assume they would inevitably come for him, as Asmodan is still seen to hold a grudge in Diablo 3. Clearly, in Diablo's weakened state and his brothers tag teaming him, it would be a matter of time before he was nullified. So, if we didn't go to hell and left Diablo alone for the time being, we could then focus on finding Baal, remembering that he's also greatly weakened without his Shard of Destruction. Even calling on Tyrael to help us locate the now maddened Marius would be infinitely easier. We presumably could find Marius first, who thankfully lives in this timeline, leveraging the stone to lure out a weakened Baal and then killing him much easier. Then the only tricky part would be taking Mephisto and Baal's soul stones to hell and finally confronting a presumably weakened or dead Diablo, or perhaps we could lure him to Sanctuary for a more even fight. Remembering the entire time this has been on their terms, so preparing for an all-out war would probably be a lot easier. The only part of the plan that is questionable is if the lesser evils learned of the plot to corrupt the World Stone, then we may have to contend with Asmodan and Belial. However, I believe Diablo would probably still try and hide from them, as he would no doubt be outmatched, as he'd still have to rally his forces, making it a much easier task to smash all three stones. The result of not following Diablo to hell would have then saved the World Stone, Mount Arreat, Marius, Tyrael, and possibly Deckard Cain, who would no longer have to give his life to reforge the Fallen Angel's sword, as Tyrael would never have fallen by the events of Diablo 3. Now, I know that killing Diablo is the reason we play the game, but the way the story is structured really illustrates the genius of Diablo 2's execution. To make the journey so personal and task so imperative, you never really stop to ask, should I? But instead gleefully rush into hell itself to kill a familiar foe one more time.
Not even death can save you from me.